Hi everyone. With the labour market becoming continually difficult for Canadian employers to find staff, the LMIA process is becoming a really important process for employers to know and understand. The LMIA, which is short for the Labour Market Impact Assessment, is the process that is needed for you to hire a foreign worker to come and work at your business in Canada. The LMIA is administered by Service Canada, so ESDC Canada, not by Immigration Canada. What it does is it determines the effect of hiring a foreign worker on the Canadian labour market. At the end of the process, you'll get either a positive or a neutral or negative labour market assessment, so the LMIA, and you want it to be positive or neutral, which means that if you're going to hire a foreign worker for the position, it's not going to have a negative effect on the Canadian labour market, aka you're not taking away positions from Canadians who are available for the position. So today I'll be talking a little bit more in depth about the two different programs. One is the high wage program and one is the low wage program. So what determines the difference between whether you can apply for a high wage or low wage program is the wage that you're going to be offering the foreign worker. Each province has its own median wage, so this is the prevailing wage for all positions. And there will be a certain number. So for Ontario at the moment, we are in September 2022. At the moment, you can either pay $26.06 or above, and that makes your position high wage. So you can apply through the high wage program in Ontario, or anything under that, it goes under the low wage. Different provinces will have a different number. Some of the Atlantic provinces have a lower number. I think BC is in Alberta are a little bit higher than 2606. So this is the number that you're working with. So there's a figure that will determine if you're high wage or low wage. What happens from there is that you can then put together an application based on the program you're applying under. So the high wage program versus low wage, there are a few different differences. So when it comes to advertising, with the high wage program, you have to advertise on the job bank and 2 other platforms minimum. I always do 5. And these platforms need to be national in scope. So that means that anyone who is across Canada, because the thought is that with the high wage applications, employees will travel to work for you. So the thought is that they can go and access these job postings wherever you are online and then apply for your job. With the low wage program, it's a little bit different. So rather than being national in scope, 2 of your ads, they need to actually target underrepresented groups. So youth, newcomers, veterans, or Indigenous persons. So you just have to make sure that you're using job posting websites that target these specific groups if you're applying under the low wage stream. Another difference with the low wage stream is that as an employer, you have to make sure that they have affordable housing. Affordable housing is defined as housing that is under 30% of their gross take-home income, and this includes utilities in that rental, those living costs. A lot of what the employers will do is provide accommodation because, of course, in Canada right now, it is difficult to find affordable housing. Under the low wage program as an employer, you also need to cover travel from the home country to Canada after the employee is finished working for you. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So what happens to apply for these applications? So you advertise for the 4 weeks. There are different forms depending on which program you're applying under, and then you submit the application to the government. One of the biggest differences between the 2 programs is that with the high wage program, you fill out what's called a transition plan. So you have to show the government, how am I transitioning off of being reliant on foreign workers? Or if you're not doing that, you can also, if you have someone in mind already, you can actually support their permanent residency and you don't have to complete the transition plan. You merely just say that you're supporting the person's permanent residency, and then that satisfies the transition plan aspect of the high wage program. With the low wage program, however, rather than a transition plan, they acknowledge that many low wage workers won't be transitioning to permanent residency. And so what they do is that they put a cap on how many foreign workers in low wage positions you can have working for you. So on LMIA-based low-wage work permits, you can only have 20% of your total workforce made up of low-wage foreign workers. Open work permit holders, high-wage LMIA holders are not counted in that number, so it's really those who are just on the LMIA-based work permits. Certain industries as of summer 2022 can have 30%, such as hospitality industries, but for most employers, it will be 20% of your total workforce can be made up of LMIA-based foreign workers. So what happens is that you put these applications together. It's $1,000 for either program per application. It's submitted to the government, and then what happens is that you'll have an interview with a government officer. The officer will look over the application form, proof of your advertisements. You have to include proof of business legitimacy, which is proof that you can afford the foreign worker, so we provide tax documentation for this, and that you're actively engaged as an employer in the business, as well as a job offer contract. So you need to have a signed contract from both you and the foreign worker. And then the application goes in. During the interview, the officer will ask you questions about your business, about the position, who's currently fulfilling the roles and duties of the position, and then they will determine the effect of the application on the labor market. And then, especially given our labor market in Canada at the moment, as long as you've done everything properly, the application is approved. And then with that LMIA, your foreign worker can apply for a work permit, either from their home country. Some people can apply at the border, and then they get either a 2 or 3 year work permit that's close to you as an employer, and then they can start working for you when they come to Canada. The foreign workers are very much like any Canadian employee. They get a social insurance number, they pay taxes to the government, they can get a health card if they're working for at least 6 months for you in Canada. So they very much are like a Canadian worker. And this is a really great way for you to manage your workforce for your Canadian business. If you have any questions about the high or low wage stream for LMIA applications and hiring a foreign worker, please get in touch. We're online at calverimmigrationservices.com.